Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on another exciting AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today's a fun one. It's Friday. We've got Noah on. Excited to spend some time talking through what is going on in the world of markets, and of course, talk through any questions and do a little modeling between some shirt action that Noah's got on. And finally, we've been talking about these jackets for a long time on the Nooner,
Nice.
kind of related to the industrial theme. So wanted to give a little bit more of a demonstration to show them off. It's finally snowing.
Sherpa lined.
Sherpa lined it is. It's got a
From
nice
the hair of live sheep.
I hope, well, actually I do hope alive. Yeah. I would imagine some good pockets, pocket action in there, some nice hoodie embroidery.
Let me see. Oh wow, look at that.
So it's a whole
that doesn't tell you. Did we say tickers yet? Are we saying tickers?
I think we can. We should have a live poll.
I won't say
in the comments
yet, but that jacket relates very closely to an industry of which we possibly have a thematic ETF focused on.
That is well said. And it keeps you heated.
You need the heat. I need the cooling.
That is true. Yeah. We're in different spots and areas. It's snowed here in DC for the first time.
I spent $100,000 on this painting.
You could resell it.
It's worth it?
I think it's priceless because I know it's family made. That's very sweet.
It was made on the garage, on the driveway.
Great. That's awesome. I think it's,
by the kids.
I think that's great. You legitimately could pass that through.
I know. I was telling them, like, I need to open an art gallery for my kids.
You could.
I'm also not an art connoisseur, obviously.
Well, whatever. I think, no, I love the new backdrop. A little more color in the mix, which is nice.
Yeah,
I feel like we've been shooting out. It's nice. It's good stuff. It's nice, and it makes me jealous for spring. I think we have, I was taking a picture.
Just started winter, right?
Of the dog running around in the snow. Cold here. I hope everyone's staying warm out there because, yeah, it is cold on the East Coast, or staying cool if you're in somewhere warmer, ultimately.
Thank you.
That's my hope and prayer for everyone out there.
Stevie,
great to see you as well.
Eagles 8-4, Texans. Yep. Those Cowboys are stinking it up last night. It's like the old Cowboys, a little bit of messing around, lack of effort. I don't know what was going on. CD gets knocked out. Dunsky.
Oh, well, whatever. It's for the entertainment of it all, for the sports gambling of it all, I guess. That seems like what that is increasingly.
I didn't know how to bet on that game, so I didn't. And I'm such a Cowboy homer, I would have made some bad decisions and lost at least anywhere from $5 to $7.
Good, you saved that cash. You can spend that on what? A coffee? Like everything's so expensive. I don't know.
Actually, I made my own coffee, so this is another day I can take my Starbucks investment and put it into the market.
There you go. I feel like Graham Stephan, if you're out there and watching, would get a kick out of that. He makes his coffee, I think, every day to save money.
And I don't mean that I homegrown the beans or ground them. They came in a pod, and I put them in a robotic machine that produced coffee.
I think you are saving money in a way that you would not be had you grown them from a seed and dried them in the sun and had to grind them down. But that is fair.
What would you say your favorite coffee bean is?
Coffee bean, the chocolate covered kind. Don't they do the espresso beans?
Really? Did you eat those?
Those are great. They're like little pick-me-ups. Yeah, I don't have a blend. I don't know if you have. I'm guessing you're not like a flavored person.
I was just going to throw out the word Arabica because I've heard that on a commercial. But after that, I don't really know.
The benefits of marketing, I guess. Whatever. It sticks with you. Yeah. All right. Well, hope everybody has had their coffee. Again, is staying warm, staying cool, all that stuff. I did want to spend a little bit of time walking through just kind of what's going on out there. I feel like it's a lot of the same themes in terms of conversations. We'll talk kind of general market, and then of course we can get into the specifics.
Market just keeps moving, right? Keeps moving. We're worried. We're all worried. Just keeps going up for some reason.
It does. Well, I think that's the problem, or not the problem. That is the crux of what the conversation. Well, that's the crux of what the conversation is.
Short.
It's for the some reason.
It was McKinsey the whole time.
Oh, do you mean? Okay, well, I mean more broadly. I think that's why people are confused. I think we are getting some interesting numbers. We were talking in the pre-show. Had been looking at Eddie Elfenbein. Shout out Eddie, to his most recent Substack that came out yesterday, and I think he was pulling out some interesting data points. Again, we don't have that many data points now that a lot of the kind of typical areas that you would look to for kind of economic reports are not coming out. I don't think he's calling for a bubble. I don't think he's somebody who is not sensationalist, but someone who would try to stoke fear or try to whatever. But I think he was looking at heavy duty or heavy trucks. Let me look at the exact thing. But saying that being down was an interesting stat, and that might suggest something
But
weird
in terms of like production and usage or miles driven, transportation, moving products?
Let me pull it specifically just so I have it. But I think, let's see.
It's like we're doing live show prep.
Like behind the scenes, I guess. Yeah, okay. I should have it up and ready to go. Let me see and check it out. Okay. All right. Wow. This is so hard to find, apparently. Dang. All right. Well, here it is. Okay. He was saying, okay. So he was saying, I urge investors not to be complacent. There are too many stocks that if they're not in a bubble, sure look like they are. The Fed meets again next week, and it looks like we'll get our third rate cut in a row. But there's some definite cracks appearing in the economy and jobs market. For example, numbers. Right? I kind of agree with that.
Are you betting towards third rate cut? I might be. I need to check my Cal sheet, but I might have money on him staying flat. Just out of spite.
Just because they're getting a new hire in, replacing him?
Yes. He's got one last chance to stick it to Trump. So my Cal sheet bet is on human nature, not on policy.
I get that on human nature.
I could easily lose $5, I believe, if I'm wrong.
That's fair. But I think that would be more like spiteful at the cost of everybody else. I don't know.
My Cal sheet won't load up.
All right, well, put it on. Let's see. But anyhow, the rest of the quote is, for example, the numbers from the BEA show that the sales of heavy trucks plunged in October and November. Bill McBride notes that lower
heavy trucks.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't think that has anything to do with the new little trucks that are getting to be allowed, which I think is great. But he was saying Bill McBride notes that lower heavy truck sales are often an omen for a recession. So an interesting. Okay, thank you, Eddie. Eddie's in the comments.
Nice. Thank you, Eddie.
Yes,
my Cal sheet position is, I say that the Fed maintains, when I placed the bet, it was 15% chance. Today, 7% chance. And I'm not going to lose 5. I think I bet 5, but for some reason the cost of the bet says $3.91. If I cash out now, I get $1.68 back. But I'm holding, baby. Oh, and if I win, I get 24.
Okay. Cash money, I guess.
Can we launch an ETF on my Cal sheet bets?
Are you what?
Can we launch an ETF on my Cal sheet bets?
That would be solid. I wish. Could someone?
I also have a bet on whether or not Bitcoin crosses $100,000 this year. What's your bet? Yes, no?
I'm going to say no. What do you think?
Now all the crypto bros just turned our show off. Thanks, McKinsey.
Okay. Whatever. Are you saying yes? Is that your bet?
Come back, crypto bros, because I voted yes, and not just voted. I put some serious dollars on this bet.
$5. What's the?
Yes, $5.77. But when I bet, here's the problem. When I bet, it was a 47% chance. Now 34% chance. So I can cash out, but I'd lose money. And then I think I almost double it, if I'm right.
Wait, by the end of the year?
Yeah, by the end of the year.
Okay.
It's so volatile. And what are we, about 10% off, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I think we're under 90.
Quote.
Okay, I'll pull it up.
88,000. All right. I need a little run. But it's down 3.75%, right? It trades like cannabis stocks in a day. Like, it's super volatile.
That is true.
It just needs, and I would argue maybe it's a hedging bet, right? So I bet that rates are flat. If I'm wrong, rates are down, because I don't think they're going to put rates up. That would be funny, though.
That would be.
Yep. And so if rates go down, I got to imagine Bitcoin reacts positively.
Yes.
Don't you think? Lower cost of capital, all that, right?
I would think so, but I would hope that people would be looking for other interesting areas that are sort of higher risk to put money that, again.
If you want that kind of volatility, and let's assume for a minute you're not playing the leverage stuff, it's crypto, it's cannabis, maybe psychedelics.
Or biotech.
Psychedelics, knock on wood's been all positive momentum this year, or positive volatility. And so, yeah.
That's true, but I think the individual stocks within psychedelics there's been a range of movement there. It's not all of them have been moving
that is true.
Lockstep up. So
yeah.
I think it's healthy amount of volatility and great.
But
I think.
where else are you going for the vol besides leverage, right? Those three categories are where you're going to get it. And so if you want to do some end of the year trading, and again, think about where everybody is, I guess, so again, depends on where your positions are. So first of all, there's not that much money in psychedelics, right? We sort of know that from our own experience. So maybe I'll push that to the side, though there could be gains to be taken if you were a shorter term investor. If you're longer term, right, it's still been a bit of a rough ride. But cannabis, right, depending on how you look at it, the US basket down to flat, I guess, but down. Well, actually, we should look at that again and get an updated number. But global, we know, at least a unique one, we know, up nicely, but not enough where I would say, oh, people are taking profits. And then the same thing with Bitcoin, flat to down this year, right? I think down a smidge. And so I don't know. I don't expect to see a lot of that type of end of year activity. And so if you want to trade it, you don't have too big of embedded gains. You don't have too big of embedded losses. They're volatile. See how it goes.
I'm not poo-pooing. I think that whole
it sounds like
grouping,
you are. It sounds like you are poo-pooing.
I'm not. I'm saying I think of those options, I would be more interested in sort of the biotech element or cannabis or anything else. I think, I don't know. I think you're right. If rates come down, I think there's more trading, and I think that probably feeds into the Bitcoin boom ultimately. But I don't know. I think there are other interesting opportunities where you can take on risk and hopefully get rewarded. Hopefully, again. But everyone has their bets they're making. Yeah, it looks like it's down roughly 5% year to date. Bitcoin.
Got it.
Interesting stuff. But anyhow, sort of tying into kind of where we are in the current market environment. Saw a really interesting chart stole from the compound that I wanted to share. I think a lot of the conversation has been on tech and what's going on with tech, and is it I think a lot of people understand obviously that tech has been driving the S&P 500 especially lately, but an interesting chart in terms of by just how much. So this is kind of breaking down for the decade so far what has been driving the S&P 500, and you can see how much of it is tech, and I think having it visually shown out is interesting. And I wonder how much of it to you, because to me, when I see that, I think, great, that's been the place to be for sure. But part of me does wonder, does that change? Is there any rotation? I don't know. I don't know if I'm more of a...
So, right? I don't think so. And what I was going to maybe do is pull up, I guess, the cues you can use as a technology benchmark. I don't know if I need to get down to a sector level, right? Sometimes it's also good to know how they define tech, right, in this chart.
Sure.
Because it could easily be stocks that might show up in a different sector, right? Say something like a Google, but it's typically grouped into all things NASDAQ, all things tech. But I do think it's going to continue to drive, right? I think if I were, as I tell my kids to invest, right, I think that tech is going to continue to drive, right? And chips in particular. I think energy is going to continue to be an important area, however that's achieved, right? Electric, gas, nuclear, all those categories. I do think, sort of healthcare, pharmaceuticals, not counting the whole challenges that could come ahead and opportunities that could come ahead for changes in how we approach things like insurance, right? Which definitely needs a gigantic overhaul, but just the overall need for healthcare, pharmaceutical, new medicines, things like that. That's the areas I think I'd probably be in, and then sprinkle in a little Bitcoin, maybe, right?
You want different crypto, yeah, I guess.
What's yours? How would you tell your soon-to-be but currently imaginary kids how to macro allocate their portfolio right now for the next, say, decade?
I want to use a term that
use it.
Relies on you only live once.
Profanity's okay here.
You only live once, sort of approach. I cannot use and fully say, but yeah, I do think you want to be aggressive. Obviously, when you have the long time horizon, I would probably say I don't think you want to miss out on tech. So that's the problem.
And what's going to slow it down? I'd sprinkle in some robotics too, right? Because when I think about it, and again, depending on how you define robotics, is a robo-taxi robotics, kind of, right? Yeah. Certainly robots are robots. But in thinking about I'll call it physical automation, right? Not automation, not even like an assembly line, even per se, not even obviously software-based automation, right? Which is important. You can find efficiencies in, but physical, right? Package getting moved, people getting moved, things getting done. That's going to be a really interesting area over the next couple of decades.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I definitely agree. It reminds me, less importantly, have you seen that video going around of someone who has a humanoid robot that they're saying just because it's shaped and designed to look like a human doesn't mean it is bound by that, and they reprogrammed it to, like, kind of crawl like a spider. Kind of crazy. I think there has
Nice.
been a move towards the humanoid robots and the robotics there, but I think, like you're saying, the majority of the actual benefit is gonna come from more of the specialized robots that don't look like you're in the Jetsons. It's gonna look like the things like cars. It's gonna look like, big warehouses that have big machines moving big packages and items around, which is also interesting. Someone was mentioning as you move more towards that automation side of things,
Mm-hmm.
things can change where you're finding more efficiencies in areas that you don't expect to. Like you don't have to use lights potentially in your warehouse because you have robots that are able to do it.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting on how that changes things. Anyhow,
Well,
so yeah,
and
I
you can
would
just
say,
take those big warehouses, bunch of battery packs, solar panels, lights or no lights, right? They can run it on all renewable energy. Yeah, I mean, there's just going to be a lot of efficiencies coming through that, which hopefully, right, it'll take some time, but we will see that in sort of the impact of inflation, right? If it can be that much cheaper, and I guess you got to think about the job impact as well, but that much cheaper to get a package from wherever it gets shipped from to a warehouse to Walmart to your doorstep, as they cut the costs there and find efficiency. So I guess the tricky part is you have all this capital investment, right, to build all this out. But if you can cut your operating costs, find some efficiencies, company gets a little profit margin, people get a little better prices, all good.
well,
Unless you lost your job as part of it, then it's not so all good.
and it is not, but I guess things would be cheaper. I guess whatever. That's fair. Yeah, so I would think that would be an area. Do think, um, I think I don't know if I have special attachment to just from learning so much about sort of the psychedelic biotech element of things. It
Mm.
does seem like that is sort of opening a new chapter. So I do think that would be one that in the
Right.
present, but also future.
Easily decade or multi-decade, right? I mean, again, not that, and as you pointed out, we definitely had performance differences across some of the stocks in the category, so you have to be a bit careful about that. But I was even thinking that about cannabis. We were chatting about it internally the other day, and just how I have a sense that there'll be some amount of people that get out, right, when we get some news and some meaningful progress, right, something meaningful, not just headlines again. So you probably have some amount of people who are going to just get out, right? If they can get to break even, hopefully, or something. You'll certainly have plenty of short-term trading coming in and moving in and out. I certainly believe over time, what likely is to happen is, people might use a basket of stocks to get their exposure, but then over time go to stocks and customize it, right? And so we have to think about all these things from a business perspective and, what the fund might look like and what it can grow to and things like that. But I also think, like, all right, well, if we were back in prohibition time, right, and we're launching ETFs, we had the alcohol ETF that was paying 280 taxes under prohibition. Would you have gotten out of that for a 1 year trade, right? Or would you have held on to it for multi-decades and been a pretty, impressive position to have? We probably have to go back and study the history of that a little bit more. And I know obviously the environments were different and the number of companies that arriving in a space is different, but also a lot of similarities. So then I think, all right, yeah, you could easily keep this as a multi-decade investment, to see where this industry as a whole starts to move and evolve.
Yeah, that's true. I think it ties in well also to kind of having that basket rather than the individual ones as well, just because I think as you do see a more normal regulatory environment, you do probably see consolidation follow pretty closely after. So I do think you find fewer, like less of a divergence between players maybe and more, you know, few specific players that I think are able to win. Again, not like three, but I think, does that make any sense or is it not making any sense? It's fine if it
No,
doesn't make
it totally makes sense. I like it. So what have we built your portfolio out to? Tech,
We got that.
psychedelics.
Tech, psychedelics. I do think there's got to be something interesting with, I know like water, and I feel like there's got
Oh,
to be something
interesting
on that,
theme.
especially because I think we talk about AI from like the heating and cooling perspective, but I think from the water perspective, that's also, it seems
I
like
feel like don't we have like all these desaling types of tools and solutions now that so we got a lot of water out there, right? If you can just clean it out and then reuse it.
True. I think we haven't found an efficiency that works. I think it takes too much to get out fresh water. So I think we haven't found that yet, but I think humans are good at figuring stuff out. So yeah, I think if we were able to do that and someone were able to capture that as a technology,
right?
But again, would that be filtered basically into tech anyway? So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know why I was thinking about this the other day too, but I was thinking about when you have these sort of natural disaster things, right? Whether it's the big fire or hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever, right? And then there's a scramble to get goods in there, whether it's communications like Starlinks or whatever, or obviously food and water and the basics. And then just in this age of robo taxis and robo semis and drones and everything else, and we saw a lot of that, I think, in the flooding, right, in North Carolina, right, when all that happened, and people were getting hot helicopters sort of in and out, but obviously people were flying, stuff in and out of there. But just thinking about how that is going to be sort of a big lifesaver for people who are stuck in rough spots, and no different than you're mentioning a robot can operate through the warehouse without needing lights, right? Which is great, right? You can have trucks that can drive all night and don't need to, except for recharging, right? Get to come back, or you might send them in earlier than you would send a human driver to say, all right, if I lose this truck, that sucks, but I'll send 10 more after it. And I'll know it's not safe to, send trucks in yet. And so you can take risks that you might not normally take. And that amount of time, right, could be a lifesaver for somebody in a difficult situation. So just, yeah, I'd have my kids all invested in anything robotics like that.
But I think that's the interesting point of saying, of pulling out.
We should launch a drones ETF.
That's true. I know. It was, I think that's a tough one. It had some really interesting stories in there.
I think it's cool.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe it'll come back. Actually, I say maybe it'll come back in. Somebody else launched one. So kudos to them. I hope they find lots of success with it.
Fair enough. Yeah. But I do think that's the interesting point of that. I'm sure in the wider range of tech or the wider range of robotics or whatever, there are going to be certain subsectors almost that do well. And I think being able to choose those makes sense.
Right.
Mic cutting out? Well.
Is mine cutting out? What?
No, it's mine. It just sounds weird to me in my own ear.
I do, or you do?
I do. Don't worry. It sounds fine. I think it's just listening to yourself is also. Anyhow. All right. Well then, so I feel like hitting tech. The one other thing that I did want to pop out, at least very quickly.
Is there anything that you can do to pump up cannabis stocks?
I wish I could hit the store that's nearby. I feel like that could technically drive sales. That would move things up. I think it's in the same spot where we've been, which again is not a bad spot. I think it's like in the position to be ready for things to turn on. But I think it's just tough waiting.
You know what it feels like to me? It feels like, and this was maybe 4-ish years ago. And think back when like Brady was pretty active, at least politically. And everything that I was seeing and hearing, at least behind the scenes, was like they were this close with Schumer and safe banking. I don't know about rescheduling per se, but I think it was safe banking in particular, or some version of that. And they were just in any day mode. And they were highly confident it was going to get done. They were being told, all the right things. It just wasn't getting done. And then before you know it, it just didn't get done, right? And it feels like we're at that moment relative to, all the feedback I feel like I'm hearing behind the scenes, which was, sort of interesting to see that Jeremy Burke post, because someone's also apparently been chatting with him as well. But it's that same thing where everyone's like, we're getting all the affirmations we are looking for and being told we're in good shape, but it hasn't happened. And if it still hasn't happened, and it still hasn't happened. And so it just feels like we're in that moment again. I don't know if it's not done by the end of the year, like how much frustration you get, or interest you lose. Again, I'll still be on record for quarters 3, 4, and 5. So I think that's when I sort of lose all right, they're not serious about this, kind of attitude. So I've still got more time, but boy, it feels like we're kind of in that zone right now.
That's true. I think timeframes is reasonable. I did see, was it Anthony that threw out a specific date?
It's like 12/23. But they're doing it, I think,
I know.
almost as a
I
joke,
know.
right?
I know. I know. I
They
know.
had the Shad Veterans Day, and
I know.
then something else came. It's
Uh,
funny. I love
yeah,
it.
it is. Yeah, it is one of those things. I'm curious if I think the weird thing is it seems like there was a lot of at least chatter or like communication from them, but visible to the rest of us, not the behind the scenes stuff, or at least for
Mhm.
me. So I hope, I mean, I want to say I hope that picks up, but obviously I'd prefer the actual stuff to come instead. But it'll be interesting heading into the holidays. I do think the hemp changed regulation does put pressure in areas that are important to the administration.
Right.
I think it's a way to maintain a broad range of demographics. I think a lot of focus is on the young vote, but I do think older people really, really need that stuff too. So hopefully it's made clear to him. But yeah, it's tough when it rests on one person. But again, it's also good because I mean, make it happen when he wants. So
Now
we'll wait and see.
still want to wait and see.
In the meantime, though, I do think again, looking at the not again. In the meantime, looking at the global side of things, I think that there are a lot of interesting stories. I know there's a lot in the U.S. and that's where the focus is for in sort of like the wider picture. But I think good to see that on the global side, things can be
Yeah,
doing really, really
international
well.
markets has outperformed US and tech. It's been a while, it feels like. And so I think flows wise, people haven't probably rushed to it as quickly as you might think, given some of the numbers that, international has posted. And I do feel like, I mean, probably even we are guilty of it. Talk about it, not as much. But yeah, international's been quietly having a fantastic year as well.
Quietly. True. It has. Quietly sounds like all the LLMs use quietly for quietly outperform. I know you're not using Grok or something immediately right now, but yeah, it's outperforming. So yeah, I think
I mean, the
place to
question
go.
is how long, right? And where do you genuinely see opportunities? I think maybe a little bit like you talked about with psychedelic stocks, right? I might be very regionally selective. What comes of trade and our relationship with China, I don't know. That seems super volatile right now. Will there be other countries sort of in sort of the Southeast Asian areas that can take on some of these things, are willing to negotiate with the administration around things like tariffs and trade agreements? I've always been a sort of a fan of the idea that, there's plenty of opportunity in South America. I'm not sure that that's coming to fruition, but when you think about, sort of the chain from Canada, US through Mexico, obviously getting through Panama and South America, and then same thing, right? This age of automation, semis that can drive themselves all night, manufacturing in cheap areas, but able to move those products around fairly reasonably. Boy, you could have an amazing sort of trade consumption, try to hopefully lift everybody up in terms of growth, and hopefully do it with countries that are less adversarial to us. Though as much as I say that, I know they look at us and say we're adversarial to them. So I guess that's just how it goes. But
Or we were randomly adversarial to Canada for no reason. But I think that we've maybe moved beyond that, hopefully. But yeah, because I do think that would be great to have that connection and all those
right.
things make a difference. But yeah, and yeah, so that'll also be interesting. I don't know if I would put in that portfolio sort of like the reshoring kind of stuff because I think that is still definitely going to be in the next probably 5. I'd imagine that
Mm-hmm.
sticks in there. I don't know if I would say 20 years. That's a long time. Hard to predict that far out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I would also, I think in the short term, I am getting closer. I'm not a pessimist, I don't think, but I am getting closer to eyeing some of the
What?
more
Hedging
true
tools?
shorts. Hedging. I'm a little nervous. I don't know.
Just because
Oh,
it's toppy, what do you think is a catalyst to, and do you think it's a short-term thing you're trying to manage to, or you think there's some challenges ahead?
it seems, again, I don't have any like hyper
Show your work.
show my work. I gotta have some insight and data. I'd pull that truck data. I can't just pull from vibes. I think it is the information that we've gotten so far in terms of how jobs are looking. I just think the environment in general also seems very um, able to make pretty broad sweeping changes. Like even with the tariff stuff I know a while ago, but that was a pretty different, I think, approach than we've seen before, which again, I think can work well in areas like cannabis, in areas like psychedelics, where you are willing to make kind of broader changes. So I don't know. It just seems like there's uncertainty in some ways in terms of what is coming next. And then I don't think tech is going to go crush or anything like that, but it seems like everything else is having a little bit of trouble sometimes, but that's not true maybe. Cause again, some areas of cannabis are, some areas of biotech are. So, yeah, great on feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I feel it does feel like, sort of middle class and below. It's still we've had probably since COVID where labor costs were rising, right? And we were sort of more in a deflationary environment because you couldn't get out and buy things. But boy, that seemed to snap back and maybe straddled by that period of just rising prices of stuff, right? Basically, since the Affordable Care Act, right? We've seen it's become less affordable, right? So you've seen healthcare costs rise over time, right? We've seen some of the increases in utility. We've seen housing, and housing's an interesting one too that I was thinking of. Where like, do I want to see cheaper, lower cost housing, more affordable housing for people? Well, of course, right? I mean, for whatever type of shelter, small or large, that somebody wants, you want them to have that, and it's got to be absolutely affordable, up and down the scale, I guess, or certainly from the bottom to the middle. No one gives a shit if, it's your upper middle class or wealthy, get whatever you're going to get, of course. But when you want those things, right, if you're a homeowner like I am, then you're like, well, wait a minute, do I want the value of my home to go down by 20%? Because wouldn't that kind of inherently come with it? Cheaper housing environment means cheaper value for these things. And so I always think that's a weird thing too, right? There's a lot of people that do own homes, lots of people that don't. And somewhere in between, people who want to own a home that just feel like they can't afford it. And the mechanism, for the most part, to get there is the values of the people who have one already, who've gotten loans for and mortgages for and all these things for already. They might see a pretty healthy haircut if the market is flooded with more houses and there is more availability and those prices go down. So I guess therein lies one, the importance of diversification, the importance that if, you're just a whatever regular person, average investor, so not speaking to financial advisors, you want to think about calling a financial advisor who will look at those things for you, right? Look at your mortgage debt, look at the value of your house, run some scenarios. What if you did lose 10 or 20% on the value of your house? What do your other investments look like? People getting a true picture of what that looks like, I think will be important to them. But if I were to see some meaningful pullback, I think it is because of some of those attributes, right? Inflation is still there. When you see each time those numbers print, even if they're lower, I think that we just see they came out with when the government was shut down, 2.8% or something like that inflation number, core inflation number. That still, means prices are still increasing, right? Even though that number might have gone down by 2.8, percent. You're paying an overall higher price on core categories. And so that's what I think slows things down. You look at, credit card debt and the increase of it. You look at, these crazy ideas with the, 50-year mortgage, or people going 7 or 8 years on a car loan, and look at car loan defaults, which Brad talks about all the time relative to companies he looks at shorting, who are taking on all that debt, as well from a consumer base. I mean, if you saw a real tough kind of, high unemployment, deflationary environment, that would do it. The only thing that I would sort of caveat it all with is I think you have an administration that is going to look to the stock market as a scoreboard, and you can't fight the Fed. So while I don't think it'll be great monetary policy to increase the Fed balance sheet, it won't shock me that they'll do whatever it takes to keep that scoreboard where they want it.
That's true. You can't fight the Fed. That is true. No, those are all really salient points. And I think that kind of captures where things are in some way. I do think there just seems to be more and more of those data points, like credit card defaults on car defaults. People, I think even with the Cyber Monday stuff, which should not be a benchmark for anything necessarily, but I think seeing the numbers there where they look higher if you're just looking at how much is spent and all that stuff, but if you're looking at kind of under the hood a little bit more, it can be trickier. So I don't know either way. I don't think anybody knows, but I think it's good to have kind of those tools available. I'm very interested. Next week, we're going to have, I think literally a week from now on Friday, Brad Lamonsdorf actually on to be able to kind of talk through what he's seeing in the market broadly, but also kind of where he's seeing weak. But
he's going to get you worked up, and you'll really want to start hedging.
Yes, that is true. He does. Tells an interesting story, and I think one that has held up and done well. What you want to do? Seeing an interesting question from Skip on the cannabis side of things. Who has the Kentucky medical licenses? That's a good question.
Good question.
I'm not entirely sure.
That.
Yeah, I know.
I might have to grok that, and then I think it depends, right, on what type. So looks like lab testing, cultivators. As I'm trying to pull this up quickly, processors.
It's okay. We can.
Producers, dispensaries. I see ZenLeaf on the list of dispensaries. Sometimes these companies have the weird names that are affiliated to them, but they put them under a weird name.
Yep.
DHKY is a winner of the dispensary license. ZenLeaf, multi-state operator, Upward Innovations, Louisville focused, nearby counties. So ZenLeaf's the only one that stands out for me, at least as one with a dispensary license in Kentucky.
Okay. Ask and see, but I do think it's that would be positive that's moving along. I do think it's a smaller market. I know a lot of people are focused obviously on places like Pennsylvania, on Florida, I think even Texas, as things are kind of changing there, which is great. Right. But still another state that I think, especially offering at least the medical side of things, isn't that positive.
One more positive ripple, right? Yeah. You could argue the same thing when Delaware, went rec, which was awesome, but small state, though very vacation sort of friendly state. But each time one of these states roll over, it's just a drop in the right direction, which again, for me, as much as it sucks to have gone through all the highs and lows and waited this long for any real meaningful reform, everything we see keeps indicating we are heading that way. It's just, next week's versus next year versus 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think, again, all the conversations we've had with either operators or people who have just been following the space and have sort of interesting insight, I think they are seeming to point to whether it's state budgets or it's the change in hemp, or just sort of like the pressure on the popularity element for the administration, that kind of the dials of urgency are being turned up. Hopefully things along. Because I think it is something that most people want at some point. But I think it's getting the timing sped up.
For full disclosure, by the way, starting to use options.
Okay.
Not really much of an options guy, but just put in, I think, a trade yesterday for March expiration. Got the strike. Maybe sevens, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to do a little run here relative to my personal time frame, right, which is the end of the first quarter. I'm optimistic and hearing things like Jeremy posted as well. We've seen from a few other people that year end seems to be a meaningful target. But who knows? So yeah, I'm like, historically not a big options guy. The funny thing that hit me though too is, as opposed to just buying more of the ETF, which then in turn only gives, in this particular case, Fidelity now some of the revenue share off my purchase. I'm like, just buy it in an option, see how that goes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I'm still doing some of the limit order stuff, just kind of a similar vibe, but different. All right, well, maybe I should put some out there as well.
Don't follow
not options. Not options. But just putting out some.
Do what I do unless you're looking to lose your ass.
No, can put out some limit orders, I guess, and see what happens on that front. All right. Well,
what are you doing this weekend in the snow?
Probably not shoveling. I think it's going to melt probably in the next, I hope, few hours, day, something like that. And then what else? I'm going to be maybe working, I think possibly, on a little bit of a redesign for the background. You did your background redesign, which is great. So I'm going to spend a little time there.
I'm going to shift mine around here at some point. And I need to get one of those back banners for more formal, all right, things.
You can do that. What about you?
Nothing. Working through emails, paying some bills. Where I'm located, it is warm, and as you can see, a bit of a blue sky out there.
Are you reading more than, what was it, 7,000 emails? What was what's his face from NVIDIA was saying in his Joe Rogan?
Thousands a day.
I think he was
I
saying
do.
7,000.
I feel like I get 1,000 a day, but I definitely do not read 1,000 a day. It's delete, delete,
Who
delete.
could? Who could? All right, fair enough. All right.
I do get a shit ton of emails every day, though. And it's just so much spam. It's the crazy thing, right? Like, I think half my email is spam.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, legit phishing schemes trying to look like it's the Microsoft, spam filter. Like, oh, we caught all these emails and it looks like the email, but it's not from them. So it's stuff like that where, like, it's not just someone soliciting me on a product that I didn't ask for. It's like legit phishing.
Actively trying to attack.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Sucks again. Maybe that's the trade, is some sort of better, not cybersecurity, but better filtering. I know that's, people have been trying
to like lock everything down, right? I think was it 5 or 6 or 7 years ago at this point, where my first and only SIM swapping incident was crazy. And the mad scramble to capture it all back. And thankfully, knock on wood, it went fine. But since then, like, I lock everything down. Can't SIM switch without me giving off a blood sample. I can't even set up like new credit cards without taking an oath and cutting my hand in blood and all those things. So yeah, it's just easier to lock it all down, and it gets you out of some flexibility. But I don't need another credit card. I don't need to. I know when I'm going to switch my phone. So yeah, it's security. That's another category you can invest in for the next decade or two.
That is true. But yeah, definitely lock your, what is it? You can lock your, not lenders, but your credit. If someone's trying to open a credit card, like you're saying, I think.
Yeah, just lock it down. It's easy to do. And you can do that at least, I guess it depends on your cell phone company, but I can do it right in the app in terms of the SIM lock now. Because I did upgrade my phone finally.
Good stuff.
Congratulations. I'm trying to think if I have it in front of me right here. I went from a 14 to the fancy 17.
Nice.
So I did a three version lift. And so my son's a proud owner of a shitty used 14 Max.
Used to be cars, and now people are passing down their phones. I feel like, just
that's how it works. They don't get new ones. They just get their parents' hand-me-downs.
Whatever. That's great. And then that motivates you to work later to get your own phone, and that's how it all works. Hopefully. It all comes together. All right. Well, that sounds good. Thanks so much for hanging out, spending some time. Everyone out there, stay safe. Have a great weekend. Have a lot of fun.
Positive vibes. Be kind to people.
Yes, that is true. And then stay tuned. Next week, we'll have some interesting guests, and like Eddie will also be on. We'll have Nasdaq Dorsey Wright to kick off. We're getting
close to his rebalance, right?
Yes.
Only likes to do a few, prefers to do none, but only likes to do a few. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah. So we'll talk through that. We'll definitely talk in more depth with SAIC, which will be interesting. That was a name that really ran this week. Yeah. So spend a little bit of time there, but yeah, just sort of talking through philosophy.
You'll have Eddie to talk about how good the market is and the opportunity is. Then you'll have Brad to just crush everyone's hopes and dreams.
To be fair, I think they almost speak to the same thing, that both say there are a few bad names out there that you either want to avoid or want to short. So I think it's the same philosophy where you want to be in the right spots, but you don't want to just own everything lock, stock, and barrel and hope for the best. I think you really want to pick those good spots, and so again, more line than I would think, but doing well, which is great. So tune in then. Looking forward to seeing you guys, but have a great weekend. Thanks so much. And
before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.